Peace and power, fam. Welcome to another episode of Free the Plant, Free the People, presented by BluRok Farms. I'm your host, LeVar Eady. And we also have an affiliate link with LeafWell, so check out leafwell.com and use the promo code BluRockFarm10 to get $10 off or 10% off on your cannabis card, your medical cannabis card. So again, that's leafwell.com and use the code BluRockFarm10, which is on the screen. So use that code to get $10 or 10% off depending on where you are. Let's get in today's episode. We are going to be talking, of course, about cannabis and something cannabis related, but we're going to be talking about cannabis through the lens of freedom, equity, and the economy. So today's episode is titled CannaTariffs. Um, if you watch the news, you might not been able to escape tariff talks and how they might affect you, how they may not affect you, the purpose of them. People don't like how they're being implemented. People may like how they are implemented. Um, so we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be getting into a very real situation that can affect communities, specifically the cannabis community. So tariffs, like I said, we're going to be breaking down how the trade policy, supply chain disruption, and economic nationalism are already affecting the cannabis space, and will potentially continue to affect the cannabis space moving into as we go through 2025. And as we know, if it's going to affect the space, it's going to affect the BIPOC entrepreneur community most likely the hardest, and small businesses the hardest. Big businesses tend to get bailouts, and they have higher levels of capital to be able to kind of weather some of these situations and to make transitions where smaller companies might not have that. So we're going to be talking about tariffs. As I said, tariffs aren't just soybeans and steel. It's going to be shaping the costs of packaging, vape technology, cultivation, gear, and more. So let's dive right into the topic. Um, what are tariffs? You might have heard a lot of talk about them like I said, on the news, but let's really break down what they are. And a simple kind of explanation of what tariffs are is a tax on imported goods. Imported means goods that are not made here in the U.S. that are being shipped in from other locations into the U.S. So imported into the U.S. versus things that we send out is exported goods. Tariffs can raise the cost of items coming from other countries, like I said, so things that are being imported in. And so right now the U.S. is reimposing tariffs on a range of countries. I think it's like 170 countries to be exact. And the countries that have the highest level of tariffs right now is China. And Chinese goods are going to be the most affected by those high level of tariffs. And some of those Chinese goods that are going to be affected by the tariffs are going to be ranging from electronics, steel, plastics, and that's going to affect the cannabis industry, specifically directly and indirectly. And so we're going to get into that and how that's going to affect cannabis operators now. One of the ways that it's going to affect, and that it is currently affecting the cannabis industry, is in vape hardware. A lot of the hardware that is used for the components that make vape pens, particularly like the batteries, come from China. So if you are a vape company where you make the pens, the disposable cartridges, or disposable pens, or just the reusable pens as well, and you need the batteries for that, unless you stockpiled on a ton of batteries, the cost of getting them imported in for you to be able to manufacture these pens is going to be substantially more expensive. Like I said, I believe the last time I heard, I think the tariffs on China was 140%. So that is going to substantially increase the amount because, again, if it's a tax on imported goods that we're getting sent here from China, that tax has to be paid by somebody. They're not going to pay it, so the company has to pay it, and then usually the company then transfers that cost onto the consumer so that it doesn't impinge on their profit margins. So that's one way that it's going to affect. The other thing that is going to affect specifically people like myself, cultivators, is LED grow lights. A lot of the components that are used for that and other cultivation equipment comes from China, or just comes from China. And with a 25% tariff on um, uh, equipment or things that would be used for LED lights is going to have a tremendous impact on how much those things cost. And so, especially for smaller businesses, even an increase of 1 to 2% can be devastating if that wasn't calculated in your financial projections and you had the capital or you made adjustments for that. Uh, that is going to be difficult. A lot of people were informed that Trump did say that he was going to put tariffs into action once he was in office, but most people didn't think that he was going to put the tariffs to the level that he has. Um, so there has been talks that they are in talks with other countries. I believe it's like 19 countries to potentially have a deal for these tariffs. Um, my understanding, China isn't in one of them. I believe what I read today is China is just now stating that they're open to potential talks if the U.S. government is more basically differential um, um, and more honest in wanting to negotiate. So with that not coming into play, so those are some of the areas that I was saying that you're going to be affected specifically in the cannabis industry by these tariffs. Um, Another major area is packaging. A lot of the Mylar bags that we get aren't produced in the U.S. Because of the cost. It's cheaper to make it elsewhere. Um, so especially the sustainable packaging and compliant packaging, specifically for the cannabis industry, you can't just get any packaging. It has to be have specific specs that fit compliance. Like for California, it has to have a see-through bag or a see-through portion so that people can validate the quality of the product, and it has to be sealable so that children aren't able to open it. So those are things that are often come from overseas. So that's going to affect. And just think about it. That's probably one of the highest costs for retail spaces is our producers is packaging. That was a big hit. Like I said, if you watch previous episodes of the Free the Plant, Free the People, I talked about how the switching of packaging requirements in California devastated a lot of small businesses because they didn't have the capital to be able to purchase the new bags that fit the specs to being compliant. After they already purchased large quantities of the packaging that was under the previous regulations. So I'll go back to that episode to kind of get more into depth on that. But we're going to run into similar situations. Versus instead of this time, it's not the changing of the compliance of the packaging; it's the tariffs. Um, a quick kind of equation is tariffs equal high input cost. And if you get higher input costs, that equals lower profit margins. And for most businesses, lower profit margins are the death of the business. So small businesses, BIPOC-led brands will have to try to compete with these changes. Um, just something to think about in regards to an easy scenario to see how this can affect a business, especially when there's reports that the last shipment in shipping containers that have been sent to LA are the last shipping containers that won't be affected by the tariffs. Starting Monday, or actually, I believe tonight at 12, the any shipping containers coming in from to LA there at that port will be or have the tariff attached to those shipping containers. So if you're a LA dispensary and you buy your packaging in 3-month increments, the first quarter already ended in March, so you got your second re-up that covers April, May, June. So we're in May now. You won't be able to get another shipment for you have probably a month and a half worth of packaging for your products. The next round that you're going to have to purchase is going to have that tariff on top of it unless a deal gets broken before that time. Hopefully there will be so that it won't affect these businesses. But if there isn't and these tariffs are still in place, that's going to affect your business. And if you didn't account for that prior and have the capital to be able to offset the cost of the increase in the tariffs for that packaging to get it still sent here so that you can still sell your product, that can be a devastating problem for your business. You might have to start laying off employees because you need the money to be able to get the packaging so you can still sell your products in your retail or your dispensary in compliance. So that's kind of just a quick scenario for a cultivator. You were planning to, you got your license. You're opening up a new facility. You're planning on getting, you know, 1,000 LED lights for your grow. That's going to be tariffed. So the amount that you had in your financial projections, let's just throw it out there that it was $50,000. That you really is more than that, but we'll just say $50,000 for that 1,000 lights to for your facility. With these tariffs, is going to be a lot more than that 50,000. Again, if you didn't have that capital to offset that, you don't have the money to buy the lights now. You don't have the lights to get your growth started. How are you going to start producing products? You can't get revenue until you have a product. It puts you in a situation where some businesses might not even get off the ground. And you're going to see it in specifically cannabis businesses where they're not going to be hiring. If they thought they were planning on to expand their workforce by, let's say, 3%, I guarantee you a lot of those companies are going to not do that. They're going to save that 3% in capital that they would have used for those employees to expand and wait to see what's going to happen, to see if they need to use it for product, manufacturing, whatever, or switching locations. Again, some people were suggesting that for, let's say, cannabis, that example that I bought about the retail of, well, instead of using the Chinese supplier for your packaging, go to another supplier. Well, again, the tariffs on our 170 countries. Where is that supplier going to come from? Two, does that supplier fit the specs of what you need to be in compliance in your state? It might not. And is this new supplier going to be able to match the cost that you were getting the previous packaging for? If not, then that's not a viable solution. So just as another thing to keep in mind. I want to talk next about the real impact of operating in entrepreneurship. We kind of got into some of it earlier as we've been talking, but let's think about it from this way. We talked about how vape brands and how the fake technology is going to be affected by the tariffs. But let's look into let's look into other components of it. So, like the cost of excuse me, I can't talk right now. The cost of a vape cart and a battery, the components needed to make it, has increased by 10 to 20% from last year to this year. And so again, that increase is going to be significant for businesses that weren't aware that it was going to be that high of an increase. For growers, hydroponic light deprivation greenhouses, specifically if you're getting the plastic for the film for the greenhouses, and that's getting imported from overseas. HVAC units, ACs, climate control systems, all of that, a lot of that comes from overseas. So that's going to affect you. And if you can't get that proper things to cool down your facilities, then you're either going to make do with what you have, which is going to also cause other raise in cost. You're going to have to use more fans. You're going to have to buy a more expensive AC unit, more AC units because they don't have the size that you need. Things of that nature that's going to increase your production costs, which, again, usually gets passed down to the consumer. And so if the consumer's not willing to pay for it, then the product sits on the shelf, and then the business they go out of business. So the big MSOs, multi-state operators, are going to be able to kind of weather this situation a lot better than smaller businesses. Smaller businesses, the things that I've been preaching for a long time are the things that are going to help you in the long run of grouping together to buy in bulk. So I brought up this example so many times. If you're a grower and you know 7 other growers and all of you use cocoa coir as your substrate or your medium for your grow, buy it in bulk together. Get it shipped to one location, and then you all go to that location and get what you need based off of what you purchased. That's the way that you can kind of try to beat this. Try to bulk buy to absorb the cost and negate, and also it gives you more leverage to negotiate deals. If you're, buying 5 pallets, for your grow alone, and you match up with those other the 7 other growers, you're now at what um, 35 pallets. That gives you more negotiation play of, yeah, I'm getting 35 pallets, and depending on the supplier, if that's all the pallets that they have, they're going to love you. And yeah, we want to, let's figure out a way to make this work. We want to have a steady supply of getting all this out to a consumer that all businesses want to be able to sell out of their products, and to hopefully work with people that are buying in large supply. So those are the things to think about, because smaller businesses aren't going to be able to, like I said, be able to make domestic alternatives of, like, well, we don't have a supplier. You see it with in GPUs and semiconductors. NVIDIA said that they pledged to building a manufacturing facility in the U.S., I believe in Arizona. Um, Small businesses aren't going to have the cap. That's over $300 million, I think, something like that is for that. Small businesses aren't going to have the capital to be able to say, yeah, we're going to just abandon our Chinese supplier and we'll just build a manufacturing plant in our state, in our city, that will be able, so we can be less reliant on them. Um, yeah, they're just not. So they're going to have to raise prices. Raise prices tends to lead to losing customers. So again, it's just different things that you need to think about to how these tariffs are going to affect your business. Tariffs aren't only going to affect the cost, but they are going to widen the wealth gap. Like I said, these larger companies are going to be able to withstand this, so they're going to still be able to make it. Where these smaller companies are not going to be able to withstand this, and they're going to go out of business. And so, prior, at least both of them were in the industry, both in the same playing field to a certain extent. But these tariffs are going to cause them to where the smaller businesses are going to be basically pushed out of the industry, leaving space for these large companies. And we're going to see a consolidation of cannabis companies across the nation, as well as in other industries as a result, if things don't change relatively soon. Um, that's just my feelings on it, my predictions. Um, like I said, the things that I would suggest on how we should move is buy in bulk through co-ops, buyers clubs. If you can, shift to a domestic supplier if it's feasible. And then push for equity protection through states for grants, tariff relief. Like there was a tariff relief that they just did for the automotive industry, um, where instead of getting hit with like 15 tariffs on 15 different things, you'll take the highest tariff, and that will be the one that you're hit with instead of a compounding of the 15 different tariffs. As well as the larger corporations getting some tariff relief with certain automotive parts and I believe aluminum. But we have to advocate for things like that for in the cannabis space, specifically small businesses, to try to give us a way through. And then we just have to really educate our customers on. I like the model that Amazon floated that they reversed course on, and I believe Timu said that they're still going to go through, is educate the customers on this is the price that we would charge you, this is the price that we have to charge you because of the tariffs, um, or else we eat that and we can't afford to eat it. And so I think that's a good way to do it so that your customers will know again. Hopefully, it will cause enough of them to be outraged that we're self-inflicting this wound on ourselves, that things will change. So that would be my suggestion on how to fight this. And a lot of people don't think that it would affect the cannabis industry, but as I stated here and I proved, it is affecting it and will affect it if things continue. But what I'll say in regards to that, I don't want to be all gloom and doom. So I did give potential options, and I will say again, I would be interested in connecting with people that have other ideas on how to combat these issues and ways that small businesses, BIPOC, women can in the cannabis space can be able to combat these tariffs and still be profitable and sustainable. Um, as you know, BluRok Farm, we do have our BluRok Farm consulting side where we do help small businesses, particularly um, navigate the space, think of strategic ways to be profitable and sustainable in a way that's morally comfortable for them. Um, yeah, our motto when it comes to consulting is it has to be customizable to your needs. So please give us a call or email LeVarED at BluRockFarm.com. Again, that's LeVarED at BluRockFarm.com. And as you know, we have our affiliate link with LeafWell. And so you can get your medical cannabis card. You can get a discount. That's any state in the U.S. Uh, that has medical cannabis. You have the ability to get that. Um, and use the code BluRockFarm10. Again, that's BluRockFarm10. That's the code you can use to get 10% off or $10 off depending on your area. But again, I want to say thank you to everybody for listening to another episode. This one was a little bit heavier than I tend to like, but I think it is important. And just a quick takeaway that I'll say in regards to this is tariffs may feel distant, but they are affecting your grow room, your packaging, and your profits. So keep that in mind. And as we say here, navigate smart, navigate through this industry as smart as you can. And you have to project and you have to pivot. Small operators need to stay informed, organize, and advocate. And most importantly, we can and we will adapt. We will, and will continue to do so. But we have to do it together. Um, so let's stick together and do it. Feel free to reach out to Free the Plant, Free the People. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe. Also follow us on Instagram at BluRok Farm, as well as Free the Plant, Free the People. And share the episode and let us know what topics you want us to talk about next. So again, thank you. Smoke something good, and we out.